several different ways about the inner workings and the battery, and it came back CR123, whereas it needed a CR2. And after I bought it and tried to put it in, it didn't fit. And so even something you think that it should get right.
Yeah, that's my biggest frustration with AI, is the AI hallucination. It'll just right out lie or make it up. Or its goal is to please you.
Right.
As
Give you an
opposed to
answer.
being accurate.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of the LLMs are still designed to please the user, not necessarily be dead on, spot on, accurate.
And they did the same thing with the deck. I'm building a ramp for my father on his cabin, and they told me to buy 50 deck plankings, but one plank for each strip versus there's 3 pieces in each board, so it ended up being 13. And it kept coming back with that amount of wood, and so
So now you're telling me, because I had Rosie the robot do the surgery on my knee to replace, now you're talking.
and they put deck planking in instead. Yeah.
Does your elbow feel better?
That's right.
So at this point, it's a guide. It's not a true to form. But I would have had a lot of lumber left over if I would have
I
thought.
was gonna say,
Yeah.
you more than one man.
Yeah.
Really long man.
All right. Well, now that Jennifer's here, we can keep going. Well, thanks for coming out there. Maybe a few more people straggling in, but we'll kind of get going here. As Dean mentioned, so our conversation today is around, is your organization ready for AI? And this is a topic that is of interest to a lot of organizations, because there are some that have resources and people and understanding of AI, but a lot of them don't. If you're a really big organization, you might have an innovation group with people dedicated to new technologies. But a lot of small organizations, they're just trying to get through the day-to-day and kind of piece together, what does AI mean for me and my organization in this time. And so the purpose behind this is to try to provide some guidelines and a framework around, well, how do you think about AI within the context of your organization, and what are the things you need to be thinking about and preparing for this new evolution here. So this is the intro music.
As you were saying.
That's right. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Andy Bass, a longtime entrepreneur in West Michigan, and have been working in the AI space for a number of years. And over the last several years, the AI has become more and more prevalent, and as we've seen the rise of the generative AI movement, really seeing this need kind of throughout our region for how do we educate and bring all of our organizations, whether you're a for-profit or a nonprofit or in education or government, bring everyone up to the same level and provide some foundational knowledge around AI. So that's where this Innovate AI initiative came from, is being a resource to our region around artificial intelligence and providing ways of educating our community on these new technologies. And so we have a website, innovateai.academy. We'll talk more about this later when we talk about our assessment process. But that'll be a resource that will continue to grow, and we'll add content to, and so forth as we go along. So that's a little bit about me and Innovate AI. I'd like to just kind of go around the table and just briefly an intro of who you are, what organization you're with, and just a little bit about your AI journey. So Pete, I'll start with you.
I'm Pete Stevens. I'm the IT manager for Herrick District Library. I've been working with AI for about 2 years. My most recent endeavor was State of Michigan Library Program, where we were tasked to create an AI cohort. So I created an AI chatbot for our website. That worked pretty well. but the, project was not approved in the end, so.
There's always
I had to
tomorrow.
show it. So, I cry every night.
Dan Zuberbeer, I'm the Groundworks Coordinator at Herrick District Library. Groundworks is our makerspace and digital media lab. And my experience with AI is just playing around with it and trying to educate our patrons who come into the library about it. And I guess hopefully we'll maybe touch on this a little bit today, but my biggest concern is in the education point is the very real possibility that people who use AI will just automatically assume what it gives me is correct. And so just very similar to the internet back more so in the early days, where what pops into my head is that picture of Abraham Lincoln with a quote that says, "If I read it on the internet, it must be true." And so I view when I use AI, I use it in my area of expertise and use it to enrich or inform or guide me in what I'm already knowledgeable about. But once I get outside of that, then it's like how, even though it might be, say, 90% accurate, how do I cross-check and double-check and to make sure what it's telling me is accurate? And if I have to do all of that, would it be quicker if I just do it myself?
Sure. Yeah.
I'm Dave Morgan. I'm the IT manager at the Stowe Company. We are a wood-based manufacturing organizational around the home focus. So a lot of closets. It's a fancy way to say closets. We do quite a bit of AI across the platform, but across our company. We're in Nampa, Idaho, as well as in Holland. And now we're starting to get where a lot of people are starting to use it and explore ChatGPTs, Grammarly's, kind of all the other ones for the day-to-day business, and kind of here to figure out a good plan to bring this back under the enterprise umbrella and kind of put some safeguards up so people aren't hurting themselves, and as your point, learning to validate information that's being fed to them to make sure they're not taking that as gospel and implementing something that might harm the company in the future. So risk adverse, I'd say.
Yeah.
Dean Whitaker, and I've been using AI since February of 22 when it first came out, and I fell in love with it, and been playing around with it ever since. I have yet to find, and I do economic development consulting, and I have yet to find something I'm not able to do with it. So I keep playing around with it, and like you've all said, you still have to check it. So I was preparing a targeted industry study, well, actually an economic development strategy for Lincoln, Nebraska. And so I had to do the whole strategy, and it came back with some really cool stuff, and the client wanted to know, well, what projects have located in our area recently? So it gave me a whole list of projects, all of which were in Nebraska. None of them were there in that community. And so it was like you said, it was trying to please me and giving me the answer to my questions, but it wasn't correct. And so that was just part of the challenge it was having as far as assuming that it was right. And I gave a presentation that started a few years ago, and I said, I made 7 mistakes when I first started using it. And the first one was assuming everyone was as enthusiastic about it as I was. And so,
That's part of my challenge too, right?
Yeah.
I'm like all in on this stuff, and I'm
Yeah.
using it all the time, every day, and I have to reframe my thinking at times around, okay, is everyone else excited about this as I am as excited? And so it's I have to kind of temper my expectations around
We have
some of these
a
things.
tech team at the library, and I was surprised at how many members of the tech team we're not really all that AI gung ho.
Mhm.
Kind of like, that really surprised me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Mark Traeger. I'm currently more of an independent consultant, but my field has always been in higher education. And I started out, I stumbled into IT when I was director of admissions at George Washington University. I fell into a software implementation. And from there, I just went down this rabbit hole Oracle, so through Oracle and then, I just recently left Workday. And while I was there, they have a student product that manages all the admissions, recruitment, and particularly advisement. Advisement's a really complicated process to say, I wanna take you have to take these courses, or this or this, or maybe not this, but then we can make exceptions. And I've always been intrigued on more, and I hadn't seen much of that yet out there. Workday was starting to work on it while I was still there. So I've been doing some kind of independent consulting since I left there. The worst thing about higher ed is they're this, these cities on the hill, these bastions of education and knowledge, and they're so backwards at times in their technology. It takes them so long to absorb that. So you have to take baby steps with that. So that's kind of where I'm intrigued, is working with some of these clients just to get to understand some of this.
Hi everyone, Jennifer Owens, President Lakeshore Advantage. We run the Next Center, this building. We have about 35 startups that are here. Andy is our AI expert, which has been amazing to have Andy to pick his brain on how to do things. For me, I love AI, I'm diving into it as much as possible, but it is overwhelming in terms of how do you gut check the data that's there, what are the tools that are right. I'm lucky because I have Andy and I can ask him. So for instance, we have a mural when you walk into this building. I had an idea in my head what I wanted the mural to be, and I was working with this artist and it was just not there yet. So I used AI and prompts to create kind of what we wanted the mural to be, and that then helped the artist to put the actual mural in place. So I use AI a lot when I'm stuck. I need to do deep dive research, or I need to gut check something too, so I find it, is an incredible tool. What I do see in our small to mid-sized companies that are manufacturers, there's a lot of haves and have-nots. Some people are like, I'm not gonna do it, I'm gonna wait for everyone to shake it out, we're not gonna use it. And then I have others who are very deep into it, who are seeing a lot of productivity gains. And the fear for me from the economic perspective is there will be companies who are left behind who will likely have to go out of business if they're not embracing this. So how do we get them to embrace it in the right way, that's safe, with the safeguards to protect their IP, their confidentiality, but overall make them be more productive, or help them to be more productive so they can compete in the global environment in which they work.
For sure.
Other than that, we're not doing it.
That's right, just regular stuff.
I'm Ken Fry. I'm a retired clergy person. I'm kind of a professional volunteer in the community in some ways. And I'm representing Rotary today. And we have 3 Rotary clubs, so I think it's good that we have somebody from Rotary here. I also am involved in a number of church kind of committees, and I'm trying to think about AI in terms of how that can be applied to local congregations as well as my own. My first experience with AI is when my high-powered lawyer's son was visiting us from Chicago, and he started talking to us about AI. I hadn't really heard too much about it. So he says, okay, Mom and Dad, let's write a thank you letter, and we're gonna write it like Donald Trump would write it. And he spit it out, and it sounded just like Donald Trump. And then he says, okay, let's do it like Barack Obama. And he does this thank you note, and it sounds like Barack Obama. And that was my first introduction to AI. But I'm also writing a book, and I have been using AI through Microsoft 365 to kind of check my work. And one time I decided, well, I'm gonna have AI summarize the chapter I'm working on. And it was amazing, the summary of the chapter. So that really kind of has whet my appetite about AI. So.
We're just doing intros, Court, come on.
Yeah, sorry,
About
my
yourself.
customer meeting went along, but Court Corwin, Andy doesn't know this, but he's my mentor. So, I'm in the AI space. I started a company 6 months ago that essentially built AI departments within companies. So we give you AI sovereignty. Maybe it's a good way to help you build the tools and use the tools. So I'm here to support Andy, and then also hopefully facilitate this fall and help with the whole cohort, so.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks. Robert?
Hi, everyone, I'm Robert Tennant. Been in the IT space for decades. I think what fascinates me or what I'm interested in is really, I've always been interested in automating things. So when I was a kid, it was like I was more interested in automating the thing than doing the thing. And I would spend more time trying to automate it than trying to, actually do it, like mow lawns or whatever. A lot of it was manual type labor. So I'm very intrigued by AI, and I'm also sobered by it. And I think where my interest falls right now is how this is going to impact the jobs-based economy. And if I were, for example, to try to mentor one of my children or somebody who was young on career advice, I'm like really sobered by the impact that this is going to have. And while I'm interested in automating things, like I said, I'm also sobered by the impact that this could have on our world. So I'm here, engaging.
Excellent.
We have one more with her face in just a minute.
Yes.
Okay, hello. I'm also the Heritage District Librarian. I work in Groundworks, which is Heritage Makerspace department. I have a computer science background, and I've been doing some stuff with AI recently, mostly on educating the public, but also some projects to demonstrate it. So, for example, we had a little talking dinosaur puppet that was powered by the ChatGPT real-time API. Yeah.
She's gonna downplay it. It was amazing. Created everything from scratch. I mean,
That's
everything
awesome.
was amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Come on. Well, thanks. Oh, Nora, I don't want to forget you.
Nora Vandenbrink, I work with Lakeshore Advantage and Surge. So this first floor is space for our local entrepreneurs who are looking to plug in and get support to help bring their idea to market. So I have the pleasure of working with all of our incredible founders and helping them navigate that path. And we're lucky to have members like Andy and Dean and others who dive into these awesome topics and help us bring them to life for members of the community and our business community. So happy to be here. Thanks for joining.
Excellent. Thanks for all the intros and the kind of the background. It's always good to hear what people are doing and where you're at with your AI journey, and it certainly is a journey. Last time, so just a little bit of a recap. We've been doing these AI workshops. We had one last month, which was all around kind of AI fundamentals for business leaders. And this month we're talking about, is your organization ready for AI? Or as Dean says, is AI ready for your organization? And then next month we're gonna be talking about the kind of building a roadmap. So what does it mean if you answer the question, my organization's ready for AI, we're doing stuff, how do we build a roadmap that takes you from point A to point B? So that's what's coming up in July. And then October 1st, we're launching our first cohort, which is a 10-week program for organizations again. We're gonna meet weekly and really kind of deep dive into all of these different things. So you're getting a taste over the summer of what we're gonna be digging into in more depth in the fall. And one of the things we talked about last month in terms of the AI fundamentals is really kind of understanding why AI is important. And we heard a little bit about that as part of these intros. And there's lots of statistics out here. This one's from Boston Consulting, but 90% of executives rank AI as a top technology, right? And it's kind of no surprise because it's everywhere, and so organizations are definitely thinking about it, and they recognize that it's extremely impactful, that it's really going to make a difference. But also recognizing that there are risks, and we've talked about some of those here around, it's hallucinating and giving me bad information, or how do I deal with my IP and privacy concerns and those kinds of things. But with all of that, there's still, the predominance are saying the benefit outweighs the risk. So we're gonna we want to proceed forward, we have to mitigate those risks and figure out, well, how do we deal with all of those different challenges? But knowing that we need to proceed, we need to move forward and push through this. And it's going to be a disruptor, for sure. And as Jennifer said, you know, there are going to be companies that they're going to fall behind. They're not going to embrace AI. They're not going to do anything with AI, and they're going to be playing catch up big time because it's going to be that impactful and that disruptive. And I think that that's one of the things that as we think about this broader Innovate AI initiative, part of it is educating organizations throughout West Michigan about the power of AI and the potential of AI, so they can make an informed decision. Some organizations, right, everyone's all in different places on the adoption curve. Some are the early adopters, they're into it, they're willing to invest and do what they need to do. And we'll have the laggards that are gonna wait and not do something. But we wanna make sure that they're educated in making an informed decision to say, yes, we're specifically not going to engage with AI. And we recognize the risk and the potential outcome for doing so, because it is going to be that impactful. And then we also understand these organizations, there's this implementation gap, right? So they recognize the power of AI, they understand that it's going to be disruptive. The challenge is that, well, they don't have the expertise, they don't have the people, the knowledge of the tools. It's evolving so quickly, right? We're seeing every day, we're seeing new tools and new platforms and updates to language models and all of this. So there are these gaps, and organizations are trying to figure out, well, how do I bridge that? How do I get from where I'm at today with limited knowledge, with not the right resources, you know, to the point of being able to really effectively implement AI? And again, that's part of building a roadmap in getting from point A to point B. So that's a little bit about, we talked about this last time in kind of building these foundations, but clearly there's interest, clearly there's challenges, and now we have to figure out, well, how do we overcome some of those things? And so why is AI important? Well, I think that there's certainly that ability to have competitive advantage in a variety of areas. You know, a lot of the talk around AI now is around efficiency. So that ability to say, I can do more with less. I can leverage AI if it's being done well. I can leverage AI to accomplish that much more in my business, whether it's on improving my product or my customer service or just my day-to-day efficiency of managing my emails or whatever it might be. It can create these great efficiencies which are going to provide competitive advantage ultimately. But you need to have the governance side of it. And you know, this is an area that is, again, it's continuing to evolve very quickly, and that's part of the challenge with AI in general, right? It's moving so quickly. How do you kind of keep up from a compliance perspective, legal issues that come up, and all of these things to mitigate those risks that we talked about? So when we think about, as an example, with privacy and IP, depending upon the language model that you use, some language models are going to, you know, reuse your data that you're inputting as learning for the next, you know, training the next model, right? Typically, if you're using the free version of anything, that's what's happening, right? So if you're not paying for ChatGPT or you're not paying for Google, I mean, all this stuff is just going to be reused. So, and that's the fear, right? Is that, oh, my people are going to be putting my IP into these language models, and then it's out there. And so understanding that yes, that can happen, A, but B, there are ways of mitigating that. So if we look at Claude as an example, Anthropic's Claude, Anthropic, their mindset is opt-in, meaning that you have to say, use my content. And this is even with, you know, on the paid side of things, right? So if I'm paying for it, even if you're paying for it with ChatGPT as an example, you have to opt out. You have to say, do not use anything that I'm providing, right? You have the option of opting out when you're paying for it, not when it's free, but when you're paying for it, you can opt out. So understanding from a particular provider, what the language model allows and is going to, what you can opt in and opt out of is important. There are different interfaces too, right? You have the web-based interface that everyone's normally using, but you also have API interfaces, so programmatic interfaces that allow you to tie in workflows or your own software. And again, those interfaces also have, that ability to say, yeah, I'm opting in or opting out from an API perspective. So understanding all of that is important. And again, those things are changing and evolving. So when there's a new model that comes in, a new provider, well, what does that mean to the legal implications of protecting my IP? There's also ethical issues, right? So when we look at the ethics of AI, the language models that are being built are black boxes, especially when we look at folks like OpenAI or Anthropic or Google, right? These are black boxes where they're pulling data from all over the internet to train these models, and we don't know where that data is coming from. But we do know it's very, very likely that there are copyright violations, right? People are pulling, the data that's being pulled is being put into these models without any permission granted by the original creator. Right, that's a challenge. that shouldn't happen. But that's part of what's happening right now. So we have that kind of ethical issue that's going on. We have the issues of, I can use AI very easily for nefarious purposes, right? If you look at the deep fake, I'll give you this. This picture of me is a deep fake. I never took this picture. I generally, when I was giving my AI talk last year, I trained a model on my image and then asked it to put me in as show me speaking at a conference. And that's what it came up with. And if you didn't know any better, right, you'd think that was me because it looks like me but it's not, it's fake. And this is with the technology of today, right? Think about what it's going to look like over the next 5, 10, 20 years. Harder and harder to determine, is it real or is it not real? And that goes for video, that goes for audio, right? Cloning voices, all of that. That's another one of the challenges. So when we talk about disruption and benefit over risk, these are some of the risks that we're dealing with that are going to be very disruptive. So the governance side is important, having kind of the right policies in place of how do you ensure that, if you're interested in AI, that it's being deployed and used appropriately, but knowing that you have these risks out there. And there aren't any necessarily easy, and there isn't an easy button for AI, unfortunately. It does require thought and kind of continuous monitoring to a degree because it is changing so quickly. But it is a source of innovation. And I think that's one of the great things is it can come up with all kinds of ideas, and it can come up with ideas that you've never thought of, right? Because it can look at patterns of information and what you're providing and come up with some really interesting things. Now, obviously, you're not going to implement all of these things, but it's just a great way of thinking about how your business could be impacted. And not even necessarily with AI, but using AI as a tool to say, okay, here are my products, here are my services, here's how I'm structured, and thinking about, well, what does this mean? How can I have it reflect back upon all of the different characteristics of my business, my organization, to give me ideas of how to do things differently. It could be a new product mix. It could be just the way I'm operating and the way my services are provided. And Court can certainly talk about that and with some of the things that he's doing, which is really quite interesting. And I hope to talk more about that at some point.
You've got the stage. I talk too much, so you gotta suppress me when necessary.
So innovation is a big thing, and then, but again, one of the challenges is the talent side of it, right? So the resources today of people that really know AI and are really into AI, it's a small number, right? Compared to the broad technology groups that are out there and the technology knowledge. But one of the things that we're seeing, I think, is kind of a democratization of technical capabilities with AI. That ability for people who are not necessarily software developers or technical people to do more technical things, because AI is acting as that technologist. The AI is being that buffer, that interface to more technical things and knowledge that you as an end user might not have. There's a big push now. There's a term called vibe coding. Who knows what vibe coding is? A few people. And it's one of these things where you can use a software tool like Lovable or Bolt or tools like Cursor or Claude Code to prompt a language model to create full applications for you without any technical knowledge. Now it helps if you have technical knowledge because you can prompt it more accurately and you kind of know the things you have to deal with when you're building applications. It could be a web app, it could be a mobile app, it could be a SaaS application. But non-technical people can build these tools very easily. Now, is it of the scale where you can build something like SAP as a big ERP system? No, not today. But you can see where it's going. You can see over time where that's going to evolve to. And we'll talk more about this in a bit, but one of the things that you'll be able to use as part of this session today is an assessment tool that I coded entirely with vibe coding. And it uses a variety of AI technologies to do that, where it basically is, you're prompted with questions around your organization and your knowledge of AI, and it develops an entire assessment, 20-page report for you.
And is it Vibe or Vibe?
Vibe, V-I-B-E, vibe coding. And again, this is something it's evolving, or just over the last 6 months, it's become more and more prevalent. And it's a very powerful tool, but it's a way that from a talent perspective, and Robert kind of talked about some of the disruption around the job market. If you think about the traditional software developer, over time, everyone's going to be a software developer. So, and again, someone like me who's been doing it for 40 years, I know the things to do or what not to do or how to prompt things in a way that's more of a development thing. But the tools are going to get so good that it's not going to matter. My skill set around development in 20 years or less likely will be obsolete. There won't be a need for me unless I'm very, very specialized, right? Now, I've written COBOL applications and I can support COBOL applications for those that know what that is. But AI can do that too, right? AI knows all the computer languages, whether it's some ancient thing that hardly anyone's used or the latest and greatest. And that's just in the software industry. Think about what it means for every other position that's out there, right? So that's going to be a challenge, right? That means there's that balance around. There will be a need for people to understand AI, but there's also going to be, AI is going to be replacing people, right? And that's just a reality that we have to understand. And that's one of the challenges in AI adoption with organizations, right? Because there's that fear, more than any other technology that's come down the road, that fear that this is really this could replace me easily, right? That fear has been there with other technologies, but it's much more real with AI. And that's something we have to be, I think, just very clear and upfront about with where AI is going. So I talked about the assessment process. And so what I've put together here is what I'm calling the 9 pillars of AI assessment. And these are areas that are kind of key to understanding your organization's ability to deal with AI. And this isn't necessarily rocket science, right? This is going to apply to really any initiative that you're thinking about, certainly with technology. But what I'm going to talk about here is an AI focus, but it's talking about things that you're going to be very familiar with. And so we start with strategy and vision. And really, this is kind of the foundation. It's about understanding the strategy of your organization. First of all, do you have a strategy? And again, a lot of companies are in that we're thinking about it. We don't have anything, we're thinking about it, or we have something and it's kind of just, we're iterating, we're evolving it. There isn't necessarily organizations that are like, yep, unless you're OpenAI, right? Where the strategy, your business is AI. If you're a manufacturer, if you're a service provider, you're likely thinking about AI, pockets of AI. People have used ChatGPT or they've played with it a little bit for summarizing emails or writing something simple, but there isn't a cohesive strategy that is weaved throughout the organization. And so that's kind of the first thing, right? So you need to be thinking about the strategy and putting at least a statement of this is where we're at and this is where we want to go. But it requires strong executive sponsorship, right? This is something that if it's going to be accepted, it needs to have that C-suite, that executive level buy-in and approval to say, yes, we're doing this. I think it also needs to have, though, a bottom-up level of acceptance as well, because again, we talked about the disruption of employment. Jobs are going to be impacted. What does it mean for the organization? Are they going to accept something, right? Or are they going to actively push back and try to submarine some initiative because they're afraid that AI is going to replace them? So that is, I think, one of the biggest challenges is the acceptance within the context of the organization. Great, you've got buy-in at the top, and you're doing this education process kind of bottom up to make sure people understand this is what AI is and this is what it means for me as an individual, as an employee of the organization. Because if they don't have a confidence that AI is a good thing, and they're thinking about it as, oh, this is going to replace me, or this is just bad, then even with all of the other pieces, you're going to have organ rejection to it, and it's not going to work, right? So that's a very important piece. So the vision needs to be established, it needs to be clear, it needs to be well communicated, and it needs to have that top-down and bottom-up support.
And can I ask,
Yeah.
are these notes accessible to us?
Yes, I will provide all of this, so.
It's better than me feverishly.
Yes, okay, you're good. And I'm also recording this, so the video will also be available once I.
So don't ask stupid questions.
Well, I mean, you can. This is a safe space. We're all friends here. So yeah, I'll provide all this as well. So thinking about budget and resources, and again, pretty standard stuff. You want to have dedicated budget to this, and the budget side of it goes into a number of different areas. Obviously, there's the people in terms of the a level of expertise, which could be, hey, we're gonna hire some consultants, or we're gonna, you know, we're testing the water, so we don't want to hire anyone externally, but we want to, you know, put together maybe an internal team that's gonna evaluate this, maybe interest from different departments. So you've got the personnel side of it and the skill side of it, of how do you kind of make sure that you're bringing in the right information and conveying the right information to the organization, because again, it's kind of a limited pool. So trying to figure out how you do that effectively. And I think that's one of the things as an aside, as we think about the broader, you know, the AI initiative, you know, being a resource for those organizations, and being tied in with Lakeshore Advantage, and being able to, you know, be a resource through Lakeshore Advantage as well for those kinds of conversations to help organizations figure out some of these things. I think that's, you know, that's part of what we want to be able to provide. But you need to have the dollars in terms of people. You need it in terms of the tools, right? So if you look at all of these different platforms, whether it's OpenAI or Anthropic, Google, they have subscriptions. You know, you're paying $20 a month for whatever the tool is. You might be paying multiple $20 a month for different components of things. Oh, I want video, or I want, you know, I'm subscribed to Midjourney. Oh, well now OpenAI can do images better than Midjourney in some cases, so maybe I'm gonna drop my Midjourney account and just use OpenAI. So there's this, it's kind of a moving target to a degree in terms of the tools that are available. I have a Midjourney account and I have an OpenAI account, and there are some things I like with Midjourney in terms of image creation, but now with some of the more recent developments with the image models with OpenAI and the ability to handle text specifically very well, you know, those are things that it's kind of, well, what tool is the best? And every day, as I said earlier, more and more and more tools are being released, and so just trying to keep up with, well, what's out there now can be a challenge, because it is changing pretty quickly. So there's that piece of it. There's the software piece of it. There is a sense of well, if I'm doing it, you know, am I gonna use cloud infrastructure for some things? And this kind of goes back to the privacy question. Is my organization willing to put things out in the cloud? And what are the security implications of that from an IT perspective? Or do I need to have everything run on premise? And what does that look like? Because as we know, the large language models require a lot of compute power to be effective. And so you can certainly bring that technology in-house, but that's another expense load on the IT group. And it's a set of knowledge because, oh, maybe I haven't developed systems to deploy AI technology on previously, right? We might know about internal databases, great, understand client server, all that kind of thing. Well, LLMs is a little bit of a different beast, and what does that require in terms of technology and support? Again, knowledge and people and so forth. But that's possible, right? It's possible to run large language models internally, and there are a number of evolving, both generic large language models like the Meta stuff, the Llama stuff, the DeepSeek. I mean, there's a variety of tools that you can run locally of different sizes, which kind of depends on what the compute power is. But again, there's knowledge there and understanding, and ultimately, what is the ROI that's expected there, and what is the time to the ROI? Because when we think about AI as creating efficiency, well, you can very quickly, whether it's vibe code an app or a proof of concept for something, that's pretty quick to show, oh, okay, I could spend $20 a month on Lovable and I could generate a bunch of apps that either internally are helpful to me or that might be part of a product in my future as an organization. And that's pretty quick ROI to get something that has value. When you're talking about a broader strategy and you're thinking, well, I'm bringing in technology, I'm hiring people, that becomes more of a challenge because you need to have that foundational strategy. You need to be able to say, this is where AI, at least where we're starting with AI. Doesn't mean this is the final thing, right? But this is where we're starting with AI, and this is how we're going to evolve it. This is the pathway of AI through our organization. Whether that's an internal efficiency play, whether that's, we're gonna build it into a product, right? If you're an organization that builds software and you have software, pretty much everyone now is putting AI into their software in some way, shape, or form. And in a lot of cases, that's a marketing play, right? That's all about, we have AI too. And it might not be necessarily of great value, but it's a way of saying, yeah, we do this too. But there are other organizations that are very much building very useful AI into their software. Yeah, Robert.
Maybe this isn't the place for the question, but I often wonder what's the difference between AI and just programmatic logic?
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. Because as a technology person, the technology people, it's like, oh, here's the new shiny thing. And this new shiny thing, this is gonna solve all our problems. But reality is that traditional technologies, non-AI technologies, in a lot of cases can do the same or better. And so in that way, it's very similar to other technology kind of decisions where you're looking at, okay, I have these two things that I could be doing. I have some technology that is new and interesting and exciting, and people want to get into it and they want to play with it, but does that technology really solve the problem and create value over what I could do with traditional things, right? Traditional programmatic approaches to writing apps or whatever it might be.
So the basis of the question is that people are calling things AI that always have existed for decades. You
Right.
know? That's my concern, is everybody slapping the AI label on
Yeah.
what they're doing, because to your point, it's a marketing play. It's probably, in many cases, not much different than what you could have gotten 5-10 years ago.
I was about to say,
Yeah.
about a year or two ago, my parents got a new washing machine and drying machine, and it said it came with AI.
Yeah.
And it's just a dryness sensor. There's no moisture sensor in dryness.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that it is a great point, because I think that organizations, you have to be discerning to a degree. When you're looking at using the tools, and also if you're building the tools with some level of AI capability, because it's very possible that there isn't anything special to what someone's advertising. It's purely just words on page, and what's really happening behind the scenes is nowhere near AI at all.
I call it AI sprinkles.
AI sprinkles, yeah, it's a good way.
Well,
Good way to think.
I'm getting so tired of hearing AI used in ads. It just drives me, oh my gosh, I don't want to hear that anymore.
I think we're kind of getting to peak AI
Hype cycle.
hype cycle, yeah. And we'll see. Just and this is no different than other things we've seen in the past, right? We'll see a backlash. We'll see people pushing back against AI, and then it'll settle in, and yeah.
I just read something this morning in the UK. They're looking at, they're investigating legislation, and they use the example because your air fryer is listening to you. And I don't know what air fryers listen to, just like your Google Home or Android or whatever device you have, but they specifically reference an air fryer and keeping that data private. That was the whole purpose for that. But I didn't know my air fryer listened to me. So.
Yeah, I think that there's actually a lot of things that listen. Unfortunately.
And it makes thermostat at home. If you think about all that data and where it's going, and they know when you're there and when you're not, and what temperature you have your house at, and when you're traveling and there's just so much information that's being collected about you.
Yeah.
Just by having a device in your home that's doing nothing more than trying to control your environment.
I did product development for years, and what's happening is the margins are so thin on the appliances, they're having you connected to an app that doesn't do anything. I don't need an app for my dishwasher if I'm physically sitting there putting it in. But the app is a Trojan horse to basically troubleshoot, so they don't have to send a service tech out and lose their margins. So the air fryer for the microphone AI integration, they're actually using it for functional value. They're trying to service you better, but the privacy component will be some friction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I think that's, we've become more and more desensitized to letting our information just kind of be out there, right? And it's a spectrum, right? Some people are very, specific about watching where their information goes. I would postulate that the general public is just like, whatever, are they concerned about their air fryer? And whatever,
They're more interested in convenience.
Right, they want the convenience.
Higher than privacy.
Right, exactly. And so, but I think that's one of the challenges. I talked about this part before. We talked about critical thinking, right? That ability to understand, well, I'm evaluating what I get out of these language models and trying to discern, is it legitimate? Is it good information? Or is it somehow, is it hallucinating and I'm not getting reasonable data here? But we're aware of it today. Again, fast forward 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, we're just gonna take so much of it for granted, right? We're gonna be like, yep, this, whatever it gives me, it's the frog in the boiling water syndrome. We'll just become so slowly desensitized to what AI is providing, and the trust factor of that is gonna continue to go up and up and up. And to the point where we're just gonna accept whatever it gives us, right? And again, some people are not. They're gonna really look at it, and that's what should be happening. And that's what we have the opportunity today, because it isn't trusted completely, right? People are aware of the fact that, okay, it could send me bad information. It could give me something wrong. We have to build those muscles today around how do we critically evaluate what AI is providing back to us, so that when we do have that just blanket acceptance, that we're not thinking that way. We're continually evaluating what it gives.
And Andy, we do that with humans now. To me, this is just illuminating a problem that we already have, that we trust humans for things without really being able to always validate that it's true.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. So I think it's, the AI is a journey. We're at the very early days. Talking about the early days of the internet, I think this is like 1995 internet days. Think about, how far we've come since then. Now, AI is developing at a much more rapid rate than internet development back in the mid-90s, but we're in early days yet. So there's a lot left to come. So we talked about kind of the financial aspects of budget and resources, the person aspect, and the technology, right? We talked about thinking about the compute power and the storage and some of these development platforms. These are all components of, as an organization, and thinking about, well, is AI something that I have an appetite for, that I can really dig into? Organizations need to be thinking about each of these components, because it all plays in. If I'm a startup, if I'm a really small organization that has minimal resources, if I'm a nonprofit, right? I don't have a lot of money, I don't have a lot of people to do some of this stuff. It's your people are wearing a lot of hats, just like a startup. You're kind of like, okay, I'm this person over here is the AI expert, so they're trying to figure out what AI means to me or to our organization. Big companies, like I said, have groups of people that can do this. But as they're thinking about that path into AI, that the resource piece is also super important. So, questions like, what is our current allocated budget for AI, if there is one? Or how do we start bringing that awareness of, hey, this is a need from an IT department, bringing that budgetary need through a process of making sure we're allocating funds to start exploring this. And again, if an organization is like, we don't want to spend the money on it, okay, recognize that what that means. If you're not willing to invest, if you're not willing to experiment and see what AI, how it's going to impact your organization, your industry, recognize that you're going to be left behind. And if that's your decision, that's fine, but be aware that that's what some of this stuff means. You're going into this with open eyes. So if you have a budget, what is it? And is it sufficient? What about allocating the resources? Do we have the financial and human resources? And do we have the infrastructure to support it? Now, the great thing is, if you're an all cloud organization, great. You can spin up servers, you can log into apps. It's, gone are the days where it's like, oh, I've got to babysit a data center. I don't miss spending nights in data centers fixing things. Cloud technology is awesome, but it isn't for everyone, right? Organizations they're still going to have on-premise systems, and we still have to be able to deal with those. We've talked about some of the governance and ethics challenges. Having some statements around how are we going to be using AI? What is appropriate use of AI within our organization? What are we going to be doing in terms of making sure that we've addressed the privacy and security issues? From a security perspective, if you're using cloud technologies, largely you have an IT group that's familiar with cloud and cloud deployments, whether you're dealing with Azure or AWS or Salesforce or using Microsoft 365 or whatever the cloud technology is. Great, it's another technology that's in the cloud, and the same kinds of security questions around, okay, is my data protected and so forth, just as it is with any other conversation with the cloud provider, applies. But you have to have those guidelines. This is how we think about AI from a technology perspective. This is what appropriate use is. This is how it aligns with our organizational value, right? So AI has to be in alignment with what else you're doing as an organization, how you present yourself as an organization, right? That has to apply as well. And there needs to be some level of oversight, right? So whether it's, you have approval processes, just like for other applications, you have it for AI, especially with, some of those things that have ethical implications, where we talked about the deepfakes and that kind of thing. Is there an opportunity to use your AI that you might be developing or putting into a product in some nefarious way? Are you thinking about it from that perspective? The risk management, which we've talked a bit about. How do we make sure that we're protecting the IP and all of that? And are there regulatory issues, right? So if you think about AI in the context of financial services or healthcare, it's there, right? I mean, AI is being used in those spaces. AI is used for millions upon millions of transactions every day to prevent fraud on your credit card, right? Credit card companies are using AI to track transactions and validate that what you're charging is truly you and it's not someone else. We're seeing AI being used in healthcare for reading radiology scans and that kind of thing, and reducing, having greater accuracy and reducing the amount of time that doctors have to look at something until it needs to be elevated to that level, right? So it's not like you're removing doctors from the whole process, but you're leveraging AI on the front end to help create efficiency. But those are heavily regulated industries, And so, and the implementation of AI is as, you know, even more so really, has to be looked at than maybe a traditional set of technologies in those spaces. Because again, you don't want AI hallucinating your healthcare results or your financial position, right? It doesn't mean that you can't use AI in those spaces, but the regulatory impact is important. And I think that, you know, as AI continues to evolve, again, early days, it's going to be part of all of our lives more and more and more, right? Today, we know it's there, we use it, but people don't necessarily think about what its impact is in our day-to-day lives. And it's going to become even more so, right? So every industry, whether it's healthcare or the legal systems or financial services or insurance or, I mean, all this stuff, education, it's all going to be impacted by AI. And so how do we prepare, not only as individuals, but as organizations for that?
Hey Andy, a
Yeah.
couple things I want to share on the governance side.
Yeah.
So I think AI can also make people feel uncomfortable in a way when you're expecting a human element face to face. So I had a recent issue with a member of my team who's an AI early adopter, which I totally appreciate. He uses Otter AI
Yep.
on meetings to take notes. Well, we were working, and this is an online meeting, virtual meeting with a client who was sharing, you know, some pretty confidential information about expansion. Otter instantly joined, and you could see them kind of clam up. He didn't ask for permission,
Right.
and you could see they didn't want to share very much. So I think that's part of that defining that value proposition. Whereas I had a vet who asked me if we could use AI in my dog's appointment to listen. I was like, yeah, sure. So
Yeah.
some of that, probably the compliance is asking that permission to utilize AI
Absolutely.
with someone as well. And that's something we haven't established, but for me, that's gonna be part of our AI kind of regulatory policy going forward.
That's a great point. I'm going to show people what this is. This is a device called Limitless. This is a microphone that it's not on right now, but I can clip it to my shirt, and it can record everything that I do during the day. Now the funny thing is with this device, and there are others like it, when I activate it and pair it with my phone, it coaches me on how do I present the fact that I'm recording my day to the people that I might be engaging with. And so, which I thought, well, that's great. I mean, you're reducing the friction to, you know, to adopt these kinds of technologies. And again, over time, this kind of thing, right, we're going to be recorded all the time, right? People are already recorded, but it's like, okay, now I've got specific devices that are going to record and transcribe for me, right? So I can just let this thing go. It's going to record for 8 hours, and then it's going to transcribe my entire day. And the way that it presents it, it says, oh, hey, I'm recording our conversation, but I'm going to be able to focus on you and what we're talking about, and less about trying to remember what. And so it kind of walks you through this coaching process, which is kind of interesting. But it's the same thing. It's like, hey, be aware, I'm recording something, or so if you're uncomfortable with that, let me know. Let's have a conversation about it. And I think that's one of those things too, that over time, that people are going to be more and more accepting of the fact that, I'm just, everyone's got a device and everyone's just always, something's listening all the time and it's capturing all the information, and then, people are doing things with it, and that'll be commonplace as well. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I had somebody I was working with that we talked about this. Was looking at doing a project where there were going to be a lot of interviews, and thinking that this device would be really, really helpful in summarizing the information that came out of the interviews, because it's very difficult to do that if you're trying to engage with somebody. But two things came up. One is, are we obligated to tell the other person that, or should we, ethically or whatever, tell the other person that we're recording? I mean, I think some people think obviously yes, and I found out other people think no, not necessarily. And then then the other issue is, question I had is if somebody knows you're recording, will you get less information?
Different information, yeah.
Lower quality information.
Right.
Yeah, so to your point, I think as this becomes more normalized, that, you know, those issues maybe go away, but
Yeah.
right now I think they're significant.
There's state laws in place about recording audio.
Yeah. Well, we talked about that with regard to phone calls too, right?
Yeah.
So.
And it's
depends on what
different
state you're in.
depending on the state, right? So
Yeah.
some states, it's like one side is fine, other states, it's, you have to have
Exactly.
both compliant and so forth, so, yeah.
You can record video all day long, but not audio. That's the
Video
general-
with
that's the general
audio?
law.
Video with audio?
State
or-
law, you can record video all day long, but audio is a different.
You have to turn off the audio if you're doing video?
Michigan, it's a one-party consent state, so you only have to have one party.
Understood that, yeah.
in the second.
But beyond that, beyond the legal issue, for me, there's an ethical boundary
Right.
too.
I agree with that.
Yeah. But, you know, to Pete's point earlier, hey, instead of taking all these notes, you know, could I just record this, right? If I had a device, can I just record it? Or, you know, is it being provided, that, you know, that kind of thing? Because, you know, for sessions like this, that it's like, hey, if someone's just talking and you're not doing a presentation and you wanna, but it's great information, it's like, okay, great, I'd love to be able to just capture it and use it, because that's helpful. And I think that we'll see more and more devices like this. So if you know who Johnny Ive is, formerly Apple's design, had just joined OpenAI. He's building an AI device. So he had a startup that they're working on an AI device. At least that's kind of the rumor on the street. And so I think, you know, we'll see more devices like this. His device isn't just a recording device. It's like it's an AI conversation device. There's, from what I've read at least, there's no screen to it. You talk with it, and it's AI on device that you can have conversations with. So we'll see more and more of those kinds of specific AI devices that are gonna be out there. Now, is that gonna be better than your phone, or are people gonna be willing to carry multiple things around? Because maybe not. That's kind of yet to be seen.
So, I host a monthly meeting, for a small roundtable of people talking about AI stuff. And I'm getting kind of irritated because one of them doesn't attend, all he does is send
As
his
an AI
item
assistant.
to record the conversation and summarize it for him.
Yeah.
I know, well, that's kind of like, see, I'm doing all the work and just, you know, it just doesn't quite seem.
No input, only output.
Well, I mean, the way to really do it is first you record your AI avatar with your voice, and then you send that avatar to the meeting. And
Pickle AI does that.
yeah.
It'll record your face for about 5 minutes and then it'll populate you doing little micro expressions.
Yeah, and that's where some of my interest is really starting to peak. I mentioned higher ed, but what you're hearing the term agents too. So it's your all-encompassing agent that acts as your, you know, attends a meeting for you, and I think of higher ed as an advisor to a student. You know, sometimes at large universities it's hard to, you know, get it advised. So you create this agent, and you give permission for that agent to talk with other faculty or talk with other students, and they can exchange information. And that's really kind of where I see a lot of this going as well, where we start compartmentalizing and sharing. Just like, you know, I can share, drop a pin, share where I am, and now your agents will.
Yeah, I think we'll have a personal agent and we'll have a work agent, and those will interact with one another, but also with agents of other people
Your
in different
healthcare
ways
agent,
of.
you choose to share that with your doctor or with
Right, yeah, you
psychiatrist.
grant consent to, you know, access whatever the
I think
data
that's
is.
really where we're gonna see that explosion of
Yeah.
more usage of that, and it's all gonna be AI.
Yeah. So the next pillar is organizational change and change management, right? So this is a big one because if your organization is change averse, right? Everyone fears change, right? We hear that all the time. But if you're not if your organizational culture isn't one of, hey, we're willing to try new things, we're willing to experiment, and we have a good process for managing change, then AI is going to be a challenge, right? Because it's one of those things that's so kind of flexible and always changing, especially right now, that's something that really needs to be managed to be successful in the context of an organization. And that kind of goes to these different areas of, you know, again, is there adaptability in the organization? Is it an innovation-driven organization, willing to, you know, take risk, understand what the risk is and take those risks, communicate well about what's going on, and have a sense of collaboration, right? Because AI is such a umbrella technology that it needs to have representation from a variety of different aspects of the business if you're going through a process. Often it starts, you know, it's very siloed when it starts with like, oh, this person in, you know, the marketing team is using OpenAI to, you know, generate social media images or whatever, you know, or come up with postings. But it's very point specific and it's in one place. So that one person is open to innovation and change and trying new things, but how does that permeate through the organization? And is that person kind of rogue in a way because they're kind of doing things under the radar? Or is it sanctioned that, hey, if you want to try new technologies, that's great, we want to support that. And so that human element, to kind of what Robert said previously, that human element of accepting change is going to be pretty important. So those questions of adaptability and, you know, do we collaborate well between departments, and do we communicate well throughout the organization around not only AI but just in general, how well are we doing that? That's another kind of critical piece to as we think about how AI is going to get rolled out.
There's a question, what
Yeah.
makes the difference in adaptability? What causes that difference in an organization? Is it a leadership issue, or where does that come from?
I think it's, so, you know, there's a culture component which is going to be driven by leadership in terms of, you know, how open is the organization, i.e. the leadership, to trying new things and experimenting, recognizing that with any new initiative, technology specifically, there's going to be failure, and is failure acceptable to an organization? Are they willing to iterate and, you know, try things and pivot? And is there a process for doing so? The way that when I think about people that work in startups, I call it living in the gray, right? There isn't black and white. You're kind of always living in the gray because you're always living in a world of uncertainty and just, you know, there's everything's changing all the time. And if an organization is comfortable living in the gray, then they're going to be more successful with some of these kinds of things. It doesn't mean that you're not black and white about specific aspects, right? Because you need to be around things like the policies and security and all of that. But the mindset of being willing to experiment and try things and fail and try something else is something that I think is driven, you know, through the culture of the organization and ultimately by the leadership of the organization, and bought into by those that are working there. But that's my opinion. Talent and skills, you know, so we've talked a bit about this as well already. There's the technical expertise, whether it's understanding what a large language model is and how to build your own. Are you familiar with tools, languages like Python as an example, which is kind of the de facto AI language? Understanding data, and that we'll get into data here in a bit, but that's another component of understanding kind of what's important. The business side, we talked a little bit about, you know, kind of this merging of business and technical. So that ability more and more for the business user, the non-technical user, to do more with AI. And again, I think we'll see more and more of that. It doesn't mean that the business person is gonna become the machine learning, in the weeds expert, but they're gonna be able to use tools that help them facilitate AI functionality and implementation very easily. And then there's the broader kind of workforce literacy, and Innovate AI as an initiative is part of that, of okay, how do we educate? How do we create understanding? One of the things we want to be able to do with this program specifically is people taking back what they've learned, right? Come to sessions like this, take back to your organization what you've learned and share it, and talk about some of these things, because much as we'd love to put hundreds of thousands of people through a room like this and educate everyone, it's not practical. Right? So we need to be able to share it to the organizations and the people that we know to help further the knowledge and understanding of what AI is and why it's important, understanding what it means to be engaged in some of these technologies. So understanding the level of AI literacy, and some of that might be, hey, we're gonna take some internal surveys, right? What are you using AI today internally for your job, whether it's a language model or a specific tool? It blurs a little bit because we're seeing AI being built into so many of the applications that we use on a daily basis, whether that's the Microsoft Suite, has got AI in it, Google Suite's got AI in it, and everything does, whether it's marketing hype or not, right? Everyone says they do, but there's certainly valuable AI technology being built in. So where are people at in terms of using it? And then is there that level of specialized expertise, whether that's something that, again, willing to say we're willing to invest and hire someone to perform a very specific AI task as within the organization, or are we gonna task a group or task a person to learn it and just get more familiar with that technology? And then, how do you deal with things like training, right? Are you training the people in the organization about AI and why it's important? Data readiness, I think, is one of the more critical pieces to this, because there's that aspect of data within the organization that's being used in the context of AI systems. This could be training a language model. That's certainly kind of at one end of the spectrum, or fine-tuning a language model based upon how you want to use it. But what we're seeing, a lot of organizations, you've got data in various pockets, right? You've got databases, you've got systems, and what does it mean to leverage that information to build, to use it in the context of AI? A good example is a concept called RAG, which essentially is retrieval augmented generation. That's what it stands for, and it's a way of tying in databases of information, content that you have in conjunction with a large language model to, in many cases, it's used for customer support, to answer support questions, and Pete, that may be part of what you would build. That ability to say, hey, we've got a lot of internal data, whether it's in documents or in databases or whatever it might be, but also we want to be able to leverage the natural language capabilities of the large language model and be able to have conversational kind of support. We see that a lot in kind of that early ways of using data, as building kind of chatbots that are tied into internal information in some way. That's a pretty popular thing to start with, or customer support in general. But again, to do that, you've got to make sure that, okay, I've got to get data from whatever system it's into a model, or I need to be able to query a model. I need to have an interface to make those kinds of inquiries, or I need to be able to populate a set of documents into a structure that the language model can use. There are some very specific technologies, just the way that large language models work. Essentially, it's a big matrix of numbers is all it is, and so you need to, if you're going to bring data into a model, you need to be able to put it in a format that the model can interact with and understand. That's evolving as well. I talked about MCPs previously, which stands for Model Context Protocol, which is a way for large language models to interface with other tools. And we're seeing this a lot with agent development, so that ability to have a language model that has a set of tools available to it, that as you prompt it, it knows to go use tool A versus tool B to go and query the web, or look up information in a database, or look up Airbnb listings, or whatever the capability is that it's tied into. But the data in all of these areas has been prepared in a way to make sure that it can be used. That's accessibility to data, but it's also data quality, which is something that, generically speaking, every organization is challenged by, is the quality of their data in some way, shape, or form. In some systems it might be great, in other systems it might be very much, it needs a lot of work, it needs a lot of processing or cleansing. All of that is part of, how do you tie data into these AI systems? So, understanding quality, accuracy, and completeness of data. Is it available to the teams that need it? If you're building something, connecting it. And what about the data architecture, right? Is the data well structured? Is it well formed in a way that's usable or easily kind of usable by AI systems? We've talked a bit about technology and infrastructure. Again, this kind of goes to that question of, are we doing things on premise? Are we doing things in the cloud? And there are, different kind of thought processes there in terms of, I have systems and servers and networks and so forth that I have to deal with internally, or I'm spinning up a server in, a minute on AWS and it's doing what I need it to do. What about the specialized hardware and software that's needed, right? So when you're dealing with large language models and processing, you're dealing with GPUs as opposed to CPUs because they deal with numbers that much better. And you have the specialized hardware internally to support that, which is why, if you watch NVIDIA, where NVIDIA has exploded as a company is because of their capability to run large language models, and everyone uses NVIDIA GPUs, and everyone's trying to get into that business because because that's what you have to use. So we've talked about kind of there's the development platforms. Again, whether you have people on staff that know Python, that are doing machine learning and understand those technologies, or platforms that are out on the web, cloud-based platforms as well. All of that is, there's kind of pieces of technology and infrastructure that are going to be important there. Scalability is one of the big challenges. You may have heard that AI is a tremendous user of energy, a tremendous user of power. And I was having dinner with a friend last night who he works in the energy industry. He works for consumers, and he goes back and forth between the Campbell plant in West Olive and Palisades in Covert. And he's an engineer. And he's saying that our energy grids are more and more challenged by all of the AI usage that's just always going on. And there's, Microsoft has purchased land in Grand Rapids. There's talk of maybe a Microsoft data center going in there, which is going to be a lot of AI. That's something that it just requires a tremendous amount of energy to manage. So not only, if you're hosting technology, if you're hosting it internally and you're running GPUs, that takes a lot of energy. So, okay, are you prepared for that? Are you prepared for the cost side of it? If you're putting it in the cloud for running something at large scale, what does that look like from a cost perspective on a monthly basis if it's running in Azure or AWS? Because GPUs are going to be that much more expensive to get a scalable solution. And then what about interoperability, right? So that ability to say, hey, we've got a bunch of systems already internally or in the cloud that, okay, how do we connect them? Do we have the right ways of interfacing them? Do we have to bring data in and out of the system, or can it talk directly? Those are all, you know, important questions. We talked about use case, and really with a lot of organizations, the easiest thing to do when you're thinking about the roadmap and starting is you start with a very specific use case, right? It's not like, hey, you're not gonna boil the ocean here. We're focused on customer support. As an example, we're gonna build a chatbot, we're gonna tie in some internal data, we're gonna evaluate how effective that is, how people are using it, and then based upon that, we're gonna iterate against that particular initiative, and then maybe we're gonna look at expanding to another area. It really requires that collaborative team approach, because you need a level of more than just the siloed, hey, a person using ChatGPT, it's helpful to have a group of people in that conversation to kind of figure out, okay, what's gonna drive the greatest business value for our organization, ultimately. And then from a project perspective, you're basically laying out a project plan, just like any other technology project, just like any other internal project. You've got resources and deliverables and a schedule, and you're going through a process. So it's very similar in that respect. But again, given the dynamics of where AI is right now, there has to be that ability to adapt and change. And we thought we were going to use this tool, but here's another tool that just came out that we should use because it's that much better, and it's going to create that much greater value and be that much more efficient for what we need to be able to do. So we've got a variety of ways of thinking about use cases. We need to evaluate, prioritize, and the cross-unit collaboration, as I said. We're running low on time here, so I'm going to try to get through a couple of things here. Measurement. So obviously measurement's important as it relates to tracking. How well are we, or how are we doing? How effective is the AI implementation that we've put in? Looking at it from a variety of perspectives, right? There might be a financial impact because we believe we're going to save money. There's going to be a specific ROI to it, and have we achieved that? There might be a certain efficiency coefficient that we're dealing with because, hey, we're reducing process time, we're improving our throughput, that type of thing. Is it customer experience? Is it employee experience? So understanding what are we impacting here, how are we measuring that impact is going to be important. Obviously, as it is with any other kind of initiative. And understanding that up front, right? So we're making sure that we're building in the measurement and the tools and so forth as part of an implementation so that it's well understood. Okay, those are the 9 pillars. What I've done here is I've built an assessment tool. Again, vibe coded this. So, and everyone in this room is a guinea pig. Congratulations. So this tool can be found at assessment.innovateai.academy. This is a tool that when you sign up, use June 19 as a referral code, and this will get you a completely free assessment. Normally, we're going to charge for these, but everyone here gets it free. And what this will do is this will ask you a series of questions in those 9 categories about your organization. And then it will deliver to you a score and a report around your AI readiness and things to be thinking about for your organization specifically. So that's something that you can do. There's about close to 30 questions. I cut it down a bit from the normal. Normally there's probably over 50, so it's not quite as intense. but hopefully it'll give you a sense. And what I'm asking for in return, because this is free, is just some feedback and thoughts on use of the tool, areas of improvement, and what you think about the value of that as we kind of roll this out more broadly. That would be very helpful. So yeah, a little bit more about the tool. So again, it's self-assessment. I think largely what we'll do with this over time, so right now it's kind of a one-shot thing, but I think we'll probably evolve this to be, so you can kind of track your progress over time. So maybe the ability to run it, quarterly or something around that, to be able to say, yeah, this is something that we're seeing improvement in these areas, or we need to be working in this space a little bit differently, or whatever it might be. I'll skip these. I think the one thing I'll just reinforce is the importance of executive leadership. It's important that leadership buys in, that leadership understands the value of what AI can do, and that's gonna go a long ways to having a successful implementation at the end of the day. And it is a continuous journey, right? It's again, this isn't a one and done type of thing, especially in today's world with AI. So it's something where you start one place and where you end up might be completely different than where you thought to begin with. But it's certainly worth exploring. Again, my opinion. So take the assessment. I'll make this available online. I'll send out an email to everyone once I get it kind of posted with the video as well, to provide that as a resource. And that's it. Next time, so if you're interested, July 17th, I know somebody just signed up for it, is developing the AI roadmap. So we're gonna dig deeper into what it looks like to kind of get from point A to point B. And that's it. I'm here for questions and hanging out, so if you have things you want to talk to, let me know. Thanks for coming.
Andy, this is so helpful. I mean, for me, it really stimulates thought, and I think sometimes the hardest thing is getting that push going, so really appreciate you.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that's, I think we know that a lot of folks is just trying to figure out, where do I start, right?
Yeah.
What's the best place to kind of get going? And there's tons of resources online now, whether it's YouTube videos, or there's online classes, there's all kinds of stuff out there on AI. So part of it is just diving in, just saying, yep, I wanna jump into this and try to figure it out, and I think part of our intent is build a community of people that are interested in AI and excited about it and willing to have coffee and talk about ideas and all that. So I think we want to do that as much as we can.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah. I think a lot of people will kind of gravitate towards day-to-day business, run the business tasks, right, and helping AI assistants basically, right?
Yep.
Have you guys experienced anything as far as like process change on a manufacturing floor, or kind of using AI to streamline business processes on the floor, or manufacturing machinery in general? I mean, there's a lot of automation, right, that's using, logic controllers with the product on lines, but have you guys seen or experienced any AI that's able to kind of plug into a system like that and kind of figure things out?
I think that's evolving, and I'll let Court talk about this, because I know he probably has some experience with some of this, more so than I do.
Yeah, I might go on a rant, so.
You look like it.
What we're seeing is all of our customers, all businesses are sitting between these two areas. FOMO, like I've got to do something with in fear of change, like, is it gonna replace me, what's gonna, you know, there's just two components, so it's like it's a prisoner's dilemma. And coming up with a strategy in the middle to apply AI, the application gap, or what you call it, the application gap, or
Yeah.
the application gap is real, and what you're experiencing is like, all these businesses are waiting for some person to apply AI and bring some software to cross that bridge, that gap. And it doesn't exist. You have to build it. But the good news is, AI is so easy to apply and use. The software tools enabled by AI allow you to build it for about 20% of the cost and about 300 times the speed. So nobody's gonna build the bridge over the application gap. You have to build it, but the good news is it's super easy to do now.
Right.
So,
And it'll get smaller, right, over time. So, you know, right now you've got the biggest chasm to cross. But over time, the chasm will shrink, so the amount of work will get that much less to bridge it. And it'll become even easier and easier to do that, you know.
what we're doing is saying, in the 90s, in the early 90s, IT departments didn't exist. But they became ubiquitous, and where I see the future going is that every company, even small, medium businesses, will have an IT department. So essentially what Andy's talking about here is you're layering in the